Let's talk about Harley Davidson. How many people in here ride Harleys? Okay, there's a few. There's always a few, right? Well, I don't believe Harley Davidson sells motorcycles. I think they sell something else. I was in Milwaukee a few years ago, and they were having a Milwaukee, Phoenix. I don't know. All right. I was in Milwaukee, and they were having a big convention of Harley owners, of hogs, right? Coming into the town. I saw them riding around everywhere, black leather all over the place, looking pretty bad. And I was in my hotel room watching the news, and of course the local news, the big story was, Harley is in town. And this young woman who was interviewing an executive, clearly she had not been through this before. And she said to the executive, how are you going to keep our city safe? There's over 100,000 Harleys here, bikers. I remember she said bikers. There's over 100,000 bikers here. How are you going to keep us safe? And he looked at her and he said, what you don't understand is what we sell is the ability for a 43-year-old accountant to dress in black leather, ride through small towns, and have people be afraid of him. That's their promise. That's their branding proposition that they are sharing with the world. They don't say that they sell bikes. See, he did not say we sell the highest quality motorcycles at reasonable prices, backed by the best customer service, giving the average person an enjoyable and thrilling ride. He did not say that. But we do. Most of us do. That's what we say. No, he said something different. He gave a branding proposition that was beyond just uniquely identifying the products or services. You want to make a promise to your marketplace that's a clearly stated promise about how you differentiate yourself from the competition. Not just because you're better, but how you are different from the competition. And you got to make sure that it resonates with your target market. So Harley gives this branding proposition out there, this big promise out there that, you're going to look bad. Your alter ego. You can be Dr. Jekyll during the day and Mr. Hyde or Ms. Hyde at night, right? So they have to have stuff that goes along with it. Stuff like black leather jackets. They got all kinds of stuff to buy. They facilitate the rides on Saturday morning. You can go and ride with the gang. These are all 43-year-old accountants. And they're all out there riding through small towns. And they're just having a ball. You can have, your Harley has that growl, that noise, that sound that it makes that just sounds bad. And if you hear that, you can hear that growl coming from a couple of blocks away. And when you hear that growl, it's like, hey, Kay, go get the kid and go in the house and lock the doors. There's a biker coming through, right? And they also have tattoos. How many of us have our customers have our logos tattooed on their arms or on their heads or on their butts? I can safely say I have never seen a Vespa tramp stamp. So anyway, you see they're looking for things that they can do to kind of change the experience, for you. And that's what they're trying to do. And you can do that. You can find these things that would change the experience. For example, one time I was staying at the Muse Hotel in New York City. This was the promise that they made to us. Our thinking caps are always on. We imagine ways to keep things fresh and welcoming for you. I thought, I wonder how they're going to do that. And one morning I was getting ready to leave to go to the meetings. I was going to be gone all day. I brushed my teeth and I realized I'm out of toothpaste. Got my little travel toothpaste and I'm squeezing that last thing out. Oh, okay, I got to remember to get a new tube of toothpaste. And so I'm gone all day. I get back at like 10:30 at night, and of course, I get to my room, put my hand on the door handle, trigger, right? It's a trigger, because as soon as I put my hand on the door handle, I thought, toothpaste. I forgot to get toothpaste. So I thought, okay, 10:30, where am I going to find toothpaste? So I thought, I'll just throw my briefcase in, and then I'll go downstairs and see if I can get some toothpaste or something like that. I walk by the bathroom, and I look in the bathroom, and on the counter is a new tube of toothpaste, with a note that says, Dear Mr. Miller, I noticed that you were out of toothpaste. And I didn't want that to be something that was stressing you out, so I took the liberty of replacing your toothpaste. Hope you have a nice day. We put our thinking caps on to always We imagine ways to keep things fresh and welcoming for you. How many of you have ever run out of toothpaste in a hotel? All of us have. How many of you have found a tube of toothpaste on your counter when you came back that day? No. They got a 5. Right? They got a 5. And when I go back to New York, I stay at the Muse. I'm standing in front of you. I'm telling you a story about the Muse Hotel. Richly imprinted experience wants to be repeated, and it wants to be shared because it was memorable. Innovation is hard. And to give you an idea what I'm talking about, I think a lot of you went onto my website and watched the video, the webinar that I had done about, innovation versus improvement. I saw that there were quite a few views in there, so I think most of you did. Either that or Tom Lasik watched it, 200 times. I don't know, which he may have done. But in that, I talked a little bit about the history of music. So, and back in 1956, Chrysler came out with a car with a turntable in it. Is there anybody in here old enough to remember the car with the turntable in it? Let me see your hands, if you're able to. If you can raise your hands. Okay. Got one over here. You can help him get his hands up. Turntables were these records that were these round black things. Not CDs. They were not CDs. No. And I want you to think about that for a second, that, you flip down this 45, it flipped down from underneath the dashboard, and then you put your 45s on it, and those were the smaller round, never mind. So then you start playing your music, and you're driving down the road, and of course the needle is skipping along. That's very practical. And there was this guy who had just started, who was an engineer at Motorola, who had just left Motorola to start a company called Learjet, a guy named Bill Lear, who thought, well, this is a really good idea to bring your own music along with you, but obviously, a record player in a car is not a good idea. So he went out looking for somebody who was a specialist in audio engineering, and he found my dad, Ralph Miller, and together they started a company that was very cleverly called Learjet Stereo, and then they invented and developed the very first 8-track tape player. And the 8-track was a game changer. Basically, if you take a look at where we are today with streaming audio and MP3s and everything like that, and you work your way back, the 8-track was the game changer. It was an innovative product that totally made everything different. It changed the whole music industry. It exploded the music industry beyond records, because now you weren't just restricted to keeping your music at home and listening to music at home. You were able to take it with you, in the car. And there were some portable 8-track tape players. They weren't real practical as far as size goes, but there were portable ones, right? But then, the 8-track had a very short life. If those of you that remember. Anybody still have an 8-track, by the way? Look at that. Put me through college, thank you. The 8-track, then, after a very short period of time, there was a product that actually had already been on the market for a number of years, had been used primarily as a dictating instrument, and that was the Philips audio cassette. And when they figured out how they could record stereo music, beside, in addition to just voice, then that became a game changer. So innovation, both the 8-track and the audio cassette. Now, think about this for a second. You heard the story, those of you that heard the story on my webinar, you know that my dad then, in response to the Philips electronic 8-track tape, to the Philips audio cassette player in response to theirs, because what made theirs better? What made theirs so much more popular? Primarily, I mean, it was small; it could fit in your hand, right? That alone was a very big deal, right? The 8-track could not fit in your hand, but they also did a couple of other things that the original 8-tracks could not do. It could fast forward, it could rewind, it could record, it could do all of those things. And the original 8-track players did not do that. So what did my dad and his team do? Well, they said, "Oh, okay. What we can do is we can put record features. We can add recording to the 8-track." And so they did that. We can do fast forward. We can do that. And you know what? We're going to do something that they have not done and they probably cannot do simply because of the size of the tape. We can create quadraphonic surround sound. It was still dead. The 8-track was still dead, despite the fact that they added these features to this. Because why? The audio cassette was the game changer. It was the innovative product. It was the game changer. And when my dad and his team, despite the fact that they had been the original game changer, despite that fact, they didn't understand that the answer to the audio cassette had to be another game changer. So in other words, what they did was they took the 8-track and they made it better. They thought, well, we'll just improve the 8-track, because that's essentially what they did. They improved the 8-track by adding these features. But the fact that it still did not rewind, you could not rewind an 8-track, and you could not hold it in the palm of your hand easily, right? And the 8-track, and I got to tell you, even though the 8-track was my dad's product, the one thing that really kind of made me crazy about it in the beginning, before it had that fast forward, was that when I was listening to Steve Miller Band, Fly Like an Eagle, and I wanted to hear the song again, those of you that remember, you still have 8-tracks and remember the 8-tracks, you had to keep driving around the block, right? To hear it again. But even though they added this stuff, it was still dead. Because improvement was not enough to overcome the innovation of the new product. Innovation, as I said, innovation is a game changer. It's really a great way of looking at it. Innovation is a game changer. If you're trying to be innovative and you are looking at doing things innovatively, you are looking at changing the game. And I'm not necessarily talking about just product innovation. I'm talking about marketing innovation. I'm talking about customer service innovation. I'm talking about anything that you can do that might be a game changer in the way the business game is played. Is innovation. If it is not, if it is just better, then it's just an improvement. And odds are it will be caught up with quickly, copied quickly, and it will no longer be really that big of a deal. And the big lesson, and this is the lesson I did not talk about in the webinar, the biggest lesson that I learned about this situation with my dad, because for many years after that, my dad was, and I hate to say this, my dad ended up being kind of an angry guy. Because he knew he had this great product, the 8-track, and in fact, in his mind, he always thought that the audio quality of the 8-track was superior to the audio cassette, and it probably was. But it wasn't enough of a difference to make a difference to those of us out there who are just normal people. Unlike the geniuses like my dad. But the lesson that I learned from the 8-track story was that the last thing you want to be is very, very good at something nobody wants to pay for.